It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
2A New Media. We'll talk behind the scenes of 2A Media, so grab a camera, microphone, your keyboard, or a phone, and join in the creation of 2A Media Online. We'll be talking nuts and bolts, give some tips and tricks, as well as discussing software, online platforms, how to network, finance, and have fun with your 2A projects.
And welcome everybody to our Daily Gun Show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern. And thanks everybody for a little bit of lag today. And thanks to Night Strike for staying up late and letting me finish. I was uploading some videos all day, and it just took a couple of minutes there at the end to finish them off so I could close all my windows over here and put all my attention on the show, and more importantly, my computer's attention at the show, because it was lagging pretty heavy for Every Second Matters earlier. And I think that's because I had like a million windows open.
Yeah,
in fact,
I like that new 80s style intro.
Yeah, dig it. I think, thanks. I don't know. I'm trying to go for, I kind of described it to Foss, right? Like what I was looking for. And then he did a really good job of like making most of that for me. And then I had asked DJ to do some narration, and I'm kind of splicing it together still. But yeah, it's in the direction of where I'm trying to go. And it's about 60% there. I mean, there's like some things I want to still add to it, but yeah. Thanks. I'm trying to give the.
It's like 80s style Miami Vice, you know?
A little bit of like, you know, American Ninja instead of Miami or whatever. And then,
right.
Like, but my thing is, I want to have like something consistent because we do daily. I want to have something consistent, but also for each day. So I appreciate all the people that are helping me with that. But yeah, thanks. So right now it's kind of in a limbo, but I wanted to get I'm calling this, you know, I had the show off for a year basically by not being able to do it. So I can't necessarily have all the time in the world to do it, but instead of waiting until there was perfect circumstances, I just started doing the show again. And so I appreciate all the people that are sticking around while it's kind of like fits and starts and it's rough edges. That being said, it's the Monday show, and as the intro said there, on Mondays, we try to focus on motivation, inspiration, and how to. Content creation, awareness of what the Second Amendment protects, just guns in general, having fun online. Those are things I value and I find are important. So I've been sharing those things since, well, I guess since 1998 technically, but the early 2000s full time. And it's been my passion to play with stuff online, show and tell with guns. So I enjoy the tech part of it and the guns part of it. And the reason I'm telling you all this is that's the reason why I devote 1/5 of my efforts online, kind of, to sharing and inspiring others, because I don't think this is a pie that there's X amount of slices. I don't think this is some kind of weird game where you only have so many chairs that people can sit at. This isn't a band that only so many players can be part of. It's the opposite, and that's why I like the internet so much, is that if you want to participate, just like anything, well, just like a lot of things, you can just jump in and participate at lots of different levels. So anyway, again, I'm explaining this to explain the reason for this Monday show, and a lot of the stuff I do online, but also some of the projects we've done and the communities that we're involved in, either the platforms themselves or just the groups of people and stuff. All right, well, with all that in mind, now we're talking Monday's topic is motivation and inspiration and technical side of it all. So I couldn't think of a better guest to get us started with this new season of the Daily Gun Show than to have Night Strike on, or Mike, who is the creator, and I don't know what you call yourself. You'll tell us what you call yourself, but the person behind the social platform we know as GunTube. Assuming most of the people listening right now know everything or know of GunTube and have been familiar with it, if you would take a second to say, hey, introduce yourself, and if you don't mind, just give us a maybe a little bit more an elevator speech, a brief but thorough history of GunTube, however you'd like, without putting the spot too hard here. But thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for giving me an invite. I'm Mike with GunTube.org. I'm the CEO, technically the only employee, but besides that, yeah, GunTube was a platform that I started. I was playing around with software before, and I had discussions with GWebs off and on before this, and uh, you know, after the original Adpocalypse with GunTube, I saw the writing on the wall that they would start moving. They would shift their paradigm further and further towards, uh, you know, anti-gun policies. And I started GunTube.org so that we had a place to put our videos where you couldn't tell people, hey, you can't post that firearms video because it doesn't fit these special requirements and these special rules. No, there's no rules on GunTube.org other than, hey, it has to be firearms videos. That's it. So uh so I started GunTube.org, years ago. What was it? 2018, I think. Yeah, I think it's 2018. And we've been running with moderate success. I would say. I'm not going to say it was 100% success, but I'd say it's moderate success. And I'm still working on a couple things for GunTube currently. If you're following on Patreon, you'll see what we've been working on in the background. We're still working on lots of things. It's just trying to get you know the circle in the circle hole, or and not get this trying to get the square in the circle hole. Lots of growing pains right now, but we're working on them.
Okay, so then there's a bunch of stuff to dig into there. So again, this is the Daily Gun Show. We go live in the evenings. We do it at midnight intentionally for the folks that work overnight, that do all the work and make everything, period. But clean everything up and get everything ready for the people that just think everything is magically reset every evening. So we run this at night, but we do it live. So I don't have the screen up now, but whenever we run the screen share in here, a quarter to a third of the screen is so that the folks that are paying attention live right now can be part of this. So I've been kind of highlighting some of the folks that are saying hello and whatnot. But I'm going to start off with a couple of questions, but feel free, Mike, to stop me anytime. And if you've got something to take it in a different direction, it's your show. And then anybody out there who's listening live, if something here sparks a question, or if you've got a question, feel free to ask it. I'm not guaranteeing this isn't kind of weird show where I'm going to ask everything, but if it's on task, if it's on what we're talking about here, the bigger picture stuff, then that's what it's all about. So I made a couple of notes here. So first off, I think you mentioned Adpocalypse, and I'm sure some people don't know what that is. Not everybody lived through it. So how would you describe the Adpocalypse?
Well, a lot of people used to be monetized on YouTube, and then sometime in, what was it, 2018, they started to shift rules around and say, if you want to be monetized, you can only do this, or you can only do that. And a lot of YouTubers who use YouTube now will understand the whole yellow monetization symbol on their videos. So, and that was the point that struck me. It's like, hey, my videos are starting to become yellow because again, I do videos personally on YouTube as well. I have my own channel, and they started tearing into everyone, and it's just I saw the writing on the wall. If they're going to go after monetization, then eventually they'll go after what kind of videos you can and can't put on their platform, and then YouTube ceases being a platform and then become a publisher.
In other words, using discretion to censor or determine what they're going to post based on their whatever ethics, morals, company policy, whatever.
Right.
But unlike something like a bulletin board type of system where they suggest, oh, we're just here to relay other people's content. We can't be held responsible for what they say because we're just relaying it. And that's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I want to add to that apocalypse. I don't remember. I think it was like 17, 18. It's not the only time it's ever happened, but that particular time.
That was pretty bad.
Well, it was the big one, and it happened at a time when more people were using YouTube, because the other times it happened, there were just fewer people using YouTube, fewer people paying attention to YouTube. So when it happened, nobody cared, because the people that cried to the wall. Nobody knew they were crying. Also, earlier in the whole experience with YouTube, we didn't know what was coming. By 2017, 18, YouTube's lifespan was like 2009, 2008, it probably came to exist. And then by about 2010, 11, 12, the internet speeds for most people were fast enough that YouTube was useful. And it was becoming a community-based thing more than like a social platform, more than simply video hosting. And there's a difference in definition there, that the audience is a big factor in a social platform, where the comments and the relationships between creators and audience doesn't really exist on a platform that's purely a bulletin board, let's say, where you simply post and have no feedback. You can never have a relationship with the audience other than maybe your analytic numbers, like how many times people view. But if there's not a thumb up or a thumbs down, then you don't get much feedback. You don't have much reason to stick around. You post and you leave, and that is not a social platform. So when YouTube kind of became the social platform, not by intent, I think it happened, and then they have leaned into it. They've resisted it. They've not been consistent. But, during those ebbs and flows, more and more people started using the thing. More and more people started using it as their income source. So as soon as it's an income source, and if it's an income source for one person, the person doing the dance, they're getting paid by somebody who's selling the dance shoes. They're getting paid by somebody who's selling the story, or they're getting paid by somebody who's selling the auditorium. They're getting paid by somebody, right? And those people that are paying that person to dance are paying because people who watch the dance are buying shoes or sitting in the auditorium or whatever, right? They're exchanging in commerce. Exactly. So when this whole thing became a big deal, then YouTube did their antics, their typical, we want both sides of the fence. We want it on both. We want it the best of both worlds, I guess. When they did that in front of so many people so abruptly, and I think what caused it was something like Coca-Cola didn't like some video. Like, it was one instance, right? And then that brought to light the concept that one advertiser could disrupt YouTube's situation. And therefore, everybody decided, wait a minute, we never thought about this before as content creators. YouTube could pull the plug on us for a random reason. We better think of alternatives. And I don't even think it really needed to be, the plug needed to be pulled for that apocalypse, for everybody to go, oh, wait a minute, what if they do pull the plug? What are we doing? Hang in here? Or what do we do? Am I describing it right? Or am I, because I definitely have seen a lot of.
You're on the track record, but you also have to remember, around that time, that's when smartphones started also getting really, really good. And then you could watch video. People started using them for, pictures, videos, and they started watching YouTube on their cell phones too.
Right. And then you also had a thing, and this is a factor. You had a thing where people would go, I've got high-speed internet at home. I've got high-speed internet at work and on my phone, like we just said. I could turn my baby monitor on and watch my dog all day. I could, watch my plants grow. I could monitor my front door. And when you do that, it's neat. But when a billion people do that, YouTube is like, we need to build islands in the ocean so that the ocean water will cool the island of computers that it takes to run all those webcams, basically. So YouTube was looking at massive increase in costs. And when I'm sure that was a factor where they're like, wait a minute, we're using a heck of a lot more resource than we ever thought we would. And they're not doing it for free. We can get into that. I'm sure we will. But you're not paying for a service. Something's up. And typically you're the thing that's being sold. So what's happening on YouTube is people are coming in using the service. Now, they don't really care that, Bob and Charlie are looking at this and that. What they care is that a 45-year-old guy and a 50-year-old guy are going to come in, and they're probably going to fart around over here, and then they're probably going to laugh at that. They're going to get angry at this, and they're going to buy that. And as long as they got enough of that data, then they can sell people who are trying to make you angry. They can sell it to people that are trying to make you fat, and they're going to sell it to people that are trying to sell you the soda at the end or the healthcare at the end, right? And that's the data that they're selling. It's not like people get all upset about, oh, who cares if they know if I like caramel instead of chocolate or whatever. But it's more that they're just using it against us, and we're seeing the consequences of that. When they offer you salted treats all the time and everybody just eats salted treats, then all our blood pressure goes up. So it's one of those kind of things. But anyway, I'm going off on tangent. So I think
I know you are.
It was a big deal in front of a lot of people, where before there was a lot of little fits and starts, but with fewer people. So there was no like mass exodus.
Right.
No, that's not true. There was a mass exodus in 2013
bit.
when they tried to make Google Plus instead of Facebook. When they saw Facebook coming and they tried to make Google Plus and push everybody over, a lot of people
made Google Plus, and
we don't like this,
people
and they
created
left.
accounts, and then they're like, oh yeah, Google Plus isn't as great as Facebook or Twitter. Let's just kill it.
Mm-hmm. And we can't force people to do it. They're leaving our service instead of doing what we're telling them to. So we're not going to try to tell them to do it anymore. They learn their lesson.
And you brought up a great point. People think, oh, YouTube is free. Why would we want to pay to be on any platform? And the factor is that YouTube isn't free. Okay. It gives you the illusion that it's free, but you're going to pay for it one way or the other, whether it's ads or whether they're trying and push, whatever product, like you said, on you. And, whether or not they're selling your data up the river to, advertisers to throw more advertisements and more products at you as well.
Right, and then you get a toxic environment created by ulterior goals, right? I guess motives, but their motive is to make money. We know that, but their goals are to make money, making a bunch of people happy that we don't necessarily care about or want to make happy, right? So in other words, if their only goal is money and Bloomberg can throw more money, then we don't want them to just only want money, right? So the characteristics of this platform and pretty much all of the big ones is that they have to be standoffish and hands-free in order to be as appealing to as many people as possible, where with our particular area of interest and our particular common focus on firearms and what the Second Amendment protects, that's stuff that we consider to be more vital and more important than a frivolous, maybe the account will stay online for 6 years or 7 years, and maybe they will turn it off 8 years into a project that, we're depending on facets of it. So when you say that it's you're paying for it with your ads and with your time and with your being tracked and having your habits, analyzed, you're also paying for it in the fact that the community isn't one that would be fostering to what we care about truly, where let's talk about the opposite, because we've just been talking about adpocalypse because of that. I figured people don't know what it is because they didn't live through it or whatever. But let's quit talking about YouTube. They don't pay us nothing. They're not paying you nothing, I'm sure. I get paid a couple of bucks from YouTube now. But as far as GunTube again, I would put in here what you said something about it's, you mentioned as you were describing it, not as successful as. Well, of course, as the founder and creator and somebody who's intimately familiar with all of the ups and downs of it, we're never going to, we had goals, we have ideas of what we'd like to see. We have our dreams, we have our realistic expectations, and we have our, what do you call it, like our point of no return. Like if it gets to this point, then we've decided it's over, right? Like, so we've got these waypoints or these places. So when you say that it wasn't a success, obviously it still exists. And I mean, considering what existed at the time, which was YouTube, Full 30, GunTube, I guess, GunStreamer, and UGETube, which was called something else, I think, at the time. And then a couple of others. The only ones that still exist are UGETube, which is different, but
they've had their fair share of problems.
But whatever. I mean, they exist. Yeah. GunStreamer only exists as like a zombie. The other one, Full 30, has gone back and forth and upside down and around. So, and then, well, I was going to say the other one.
I'll tell you something about Full 30 that I found out. It's really funny, but I don't want to talk about it on air because I don't want to give them any bad press or anything.
And we don't have to be gossipy, but I'm just saying basically though that when you measure success as the person who's in charge and running everything, then that's going to be a different thing. It's a difficult thing to gauge, considering gun channels died. So you know what I'm saying.
Well, remember when we started GunTube, and that was before gun streamers started, and that's before YouTube started too. So
yeah,
we
but
were before both of them, but it was
months.
just 30 full 30 in YouTube at the time.
By months though, full 30 was years before you, but
yeah.
But you didn't hit them by that much. But no, you definitely. And the thing is, the strategy of UGE Tube didn't work, and then the humans behind it have exchanged out. I think for the. I mean, I don't know the exact details, and I think if I understand it, there's multiple
got in trouble
people involved, and some of them have stayed, but others have come and gone. Yeah. So it's, in other words, it's shifted and shuffled, but not necessarily changed hands like as much. Like I say, it's a collaborative thing. But Gun Streamer, we were intimately familiar with that one, at least as could be as an outsider, and we supported them and encouraged them. And unfortunately, that one didn't go as planned or as hoped. But again, that one, compare it again, you know, it still exists and it's doing things, but it's not. It's a zombie. It's a husk now. But so as far as that being said, the success or whatever, I think is just. I guess I'm saying that's there's got to be a word for that I'm not thinking of. It's a reflection or reflect. It's a scalable. What am I trying to say? It's variable to the circumstances. I can't think of it. You have to calibrate it to your circumstances. But anyway, I was just going to say, because of that, what factors were you thinking when you say the level? I don't want to say it because it's whatever the level of success you think it's at, regardless of what level. What factors are you using to determine what if it, that it to say that what kind of when you think of GunTube, what kind of stuff what are the pieces of it that you think about?
Well, when I mentioned level of success, you always strive for like the top level of success, but you always have to have a realistic expectation of what actual level of success you're going to get. So that's why I said what I said. But I went with GunTube to try and do just the basics that YouTube did. Video viewing, okay, commenting on the videos, subscribing, following, that kind of thing. Also figured out a way to do live streaming too. There is live streaming on GunTube, and there used to be Google Hangouts. There's not Google Hangouts anymore. They call it Google Meetings or something like that. And it's you can't stream.
I don't even know because you can't stream, so it's
you can't stream to it anymore unless you have a business account. From what I'm aware, unless you have a business account with Google to use Google Meetings, you can't use the RTMP streaming format on Google Meetings. So it's just like, wow, they've just like really neutered it to the point where it's not even worth using anymore. So, but yeah. Live streaming and video viewing. That's basically the basics. What I strove for for GunTube, and it works. And that's really all I've got on that.
Right on. So I threw some notes in here as we're chatting because again, I did QA for AOL, so I just like on Magic or something. I just happened to be in rooms where I had to sit with a whole bunch of other people who were doing other things for QA. So I just happened to know stuff about QA of software and things. And it's not like I'm fresh or nothing. This was in 1997. But so things to measure as success could be things like when we're talking video hosting, without getting too crazy complicated for anybody. Files exist, and a video is just a file, right? Just like a sound file or a picture or a freaking blog post or what is that, like a Word document or something, right? So, and then these files go across the internet in little tiny stupid packets. That's a whole other discussion we did a couple of weeks ago. But the internet was designed originally to run on telephone lines, and because there was long distance rates back in the day, they chopped everything up into slices so that they didn't have to send loaves of bread around. These files weren't complete. They were little tiny packets. And fast forward to the new internet where we don't really use the copper phone lines anymore, but we still chop everything up into packets. It kind of worked out that when you're going to send something giant like a video across, then, that worked out or whatever. So where was I getting to? You can measure success, like, the ability to scale, like, the ability to even hold this number of files. You could measure success that you were able to accomplish. I don't know, I'm trying to think of a couple of the things that I was able to do on GunTube that I couldn't do on Gun or stupid YouTube or whatever, because of their policies, or because I just didn't want to do it over on YouTube. So some of the premieres, or some of the tours and things that, and I'm sure there's channels that exclusively use GunTube. So you could look at it, that not just that you're providing a place for those people to do it as a measure of success, but the idea that when a whole bunch of people show up for whatever your equivalent of the Super Bowl on GunTube was, that you were able to keep the lights on. Everybody just takes for granted that everything just fucking works. It ain't magic. Like, Mike had to go figure out how to set it all up, accomplish setting it up, and then maintain it as if, it was all, and that just doesn't happen. You have to learn stuff along the way, and having a realistic expectation going into it. Hey, if I want to be here for 5 years, I'm going to have to adapt. I'm going to have to keep learning how the thing works. So I need to be able to juggle this whole thing so that as stuff comes up, the lights stay on. So that could be a measure of success, that you are able to stay in business and not be taken out by any number of technical or, just difficult things to figure out. Then managing accounts. Tell me about managing accounts. I don't think you've ever got to the level we had at Gun Channels, but I'm saying, like, that's not easy. Dealing with channels is just annoying as hell. Number one, it's human beings behind every one, and sometimes they have like 5, and then they've got questions, and you've only got 24 hours in a day, and nobody says, oh, let me wait until you're ready to have a question, right? So dealing with accounts and that kind of stuff, the learning curve there could be considered a measure of success. Figuring out, once after a few years of doing this, you must have a better and better idea of grasp of, like, what all's involved in running a social platform by yourself. There's very few people that I think you are able to conceptualize that haven't done it before. But all the stuff that's involved with both the human aspect, the technical aspect, the cost aspect, and then the time management aspect, and still be on float. I couldn't do it. So, still being afloat, that's a measure of success. And on top of all that, knowing good and well that anything can change at any time, right? I'm just going to use the example that, Patreon people start to figure out that by giving Mike $10 a month, that if 100 people were to give Mike $10 a month and change his, I don't even want to think about what his budget is right now, but change that times many to 1,000. And what if even more? What if, 100 people gave him $5 a month, or whatever it comes out to, whatever, it makes it some real money. So if that changed, and all of a sudden you've got a staff and stuff, right? Because what's to stop that from happening? Nothing. Like, what's his face? His kid takes over the NRA, changes it. That makes all these little kids realize that you can change things instead of just watching things burn. And once they figure out that we're united in repairing and changing and appreciating what's vintage, we become even bigger and bigger, and people are looking for 2A focused projects, and boom, Mike's flooded with cash. Well, or when they start to come to these projects and say, who's got the time on the clock? You've been here running it for 4-6 years now. So that accumulated time on the clock is another measure of success. So I'm just throwing stuff out there that I came up with while we were chatting here. But again, if you're looking at this as like a business project, or maybe like a class project in a business school or something, I bet you they'd have all kinds of ways to measure characteristics of it. So anyway, I don't want to put you on the spot or nothing, but again, you've been doing this for a while. I'll let you say anything you want here in a second, but then, because I've just been ranting here, but I guess so that in case you don't have something to go in, my next question is going to be that environment that I kind of just explained, all that stuff that you've been doing. What's the hardest part about running GunTube, or what's been maybe on that whole idea of accomplishments or success? What's been the biggest accomplishment or the biggest success of all the different facets of running it?
Getting the software to work right the first time. That's the big success right there, because there's a lot of software you can use to accomplish this. And some of it's open source. But again, you have to realize that if you use open source software, some of it, for your platform, you realize you run the risk of, hackers or people that want to just see the world burn and want to screw with you on a constant basis. And I'm not using open source software for GunTube. Unfortunately, we're using proprietary, just because the factor that the the less hassle, the better. Uh, the other accomplishments that I think the biggest accomplishment right now is that we're still online. Uh, so that's the biggest one I think of right now, that we're still online, we're still running, it still works, and everyone is still posting videos and sharing it, whatnot. We the thing is, every time someone goes and creates an account on GunTube, whether they use it or not, I get a notification of everybody that joins GunTube because of how the software works, so that I know that people are actually signing up, people are actually trying to use it. So that's always nice to see. So,
Now, people might hear that and go, "Oh, that's kind of odd that somebody's that worried." Well, first, he's probably paying attention because he cares, but it's probably also because if you're not paying attention and you don't care, what happens is a bunch of bots jump in, or weirdos jump in, or abusive stuff happens. So he's got to watch it, but since he's watching it, he's able to recognize, because he's got interest in what's happening there. He's able to
right,
recognize.
and if you run an online video hosting website, it doesn't matter who you are. Okay, I'm telling you right now, Full 30 probably has the same thing. I know Gunstreamer has the same thing. And I also know that YouTube has the same kind of setup, where they get an email when somebody creates an account and starts using it.
Yeah,
Because
there's Smarter Every Day.
Yeah, I do know Smarter Every Day. Yes.
That's a channel on YouTube. It's a giant one. I don't think it's the biggest channel, but it's a big one in the science and like kind of, I don't think it's how to, but like explainer videos, I guess the way to say it. Like he does tours and talks about science and stuff. Anyway, that guy I'm pretty sure it was that guy, did a series of videos. He said that one day he was watching something and a video just struck him as being very robotic and weird, but it was getting a lot of interaction with what seemed like real people, and it just didn't click to him as somebody who uses YouTube a lot and understands how his interaction worked with it. This seemed odd and out of place, and instead of just overlooking it, since he was in a position where he could talk to YouTube, he did. He went and asked YouTube, and then because of the answers he got, he also went to Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I think it was like all four at the time, like of the giant ones. And basically, it was an interesting series. It's like 4 20-minute videos or something he does. And these have got to be 3 years ago or something. It's their age at this point, if he hasn't already addressed them again. But the gist of it is that like YouTube has something like a staff deleting something like 1 million accounts a day plus. That's just like, of all the accounts that come in, 1 million of them are fake. So they're doing all kinds of things to delete 1 million a day. So there's like literally endless amount of people. I don't need to call it abuse, just sort of like ding dong ditching, equivalent of like just being annoying online. But if you don't monitor it and deal with it, then
it can get out of hand.
Let the regular people in who are supposed to be there or whatever. Like it just gets in the way and it gets to be like litter, right?
Right. Managing accounts, whether your YouTube, your Gunstreamer, your Full 30, or even GunTube, it's quite a handful. Honestly, it's a handful to manage accounts, make sure that the accounts that are signing up are valid accounts, and that the people who are uploading videos are uploading the right type of videos. Because I'll be honest, we've had people who decided to try and upload the wrong type of content, either to mess with us or to be a general nuisance. And you have to watch that kind of thing. You have to watch and look, and if they do that kind of thing, you have to handle it accordingly.
Like I say, I'm going to try to pause because I don't want to. I'm not good at this, and plus I know you, and most of the people who listen to this, I'm assuming
I know you
pretty
too.
much intimately what's going on. But I'm also trying to be kind of like, for the people that might never know who I am or you are or what GunTube is, I'm trying to not assume everything that they know everything. Right. But typically when I'm going to ask people on, I'm going to ask them briefly to spend some time telling us what they do, because I'm actually trying to be the opposite of a typical interview. And then I'm going to ask them, I ask them three questions: what or who, and then why, and then how. So you've kind of addressed the why, but I'm going to ask you just the very open questions so that you get a chance to explore it as much as you want or as little as you want, because there's no obligation here. But my interest is to let others know, through this whole idea of inspiration and motivation, why those people that are out there doing things are doing it. So we all have different motivations, and so I give people a chance to talk about that, because almost always it's like, what are you doing and how can we help, or what are you doing? And very rarely do they give you any time to go off on the why. And then we'll spend the rest of the time talking about the how. But like I say, I kind of know way too much. I know a lot about GunTube, and I don't want to necessarily get into nuts and bolts, because one, no one's business, and two, it's boring. But I'm going to ask you some general kind of things. But like I say, if they get to be annoying, let me know. But I'm going to let you, now that I've given you a chance to think about it for a minute, what's the why? Like, why did you do GunTube? And since, again, we've chatted a million times and most people probably kind of got an idea, expand on the why a little bit. And then I'm about to ask you to follow up. Has your why changed? Or feel free to just address it all at the same time. But like I say, normally I'm going to ask somebody who I don't know, why do you do what you do? And then in your case, since we know each other so much, has it changed over time?
Why do I do GunTube? Well, I really wanted a corner of the internet to where we could upload videos to where it would just be firearms videos for us. They originally, the GunTube crowd, or not the gun channels crowd, and gun channels on YouTube as well. It's just, you know, you gave me the inspiration to go out and just, you said, if you want to do something, go out and do it and just, make it work. And, I've been trying my butt off to try and make it work. And so far, I've succeeded. It's just, it's not easy. And, anything worth doing isn't easy. So, there's that. Uh, we're still up, we're still running, and hopefully we will be for, many years to come.
So now that you've had, like I say, time on the clock and ups and downs for sure, right? And challenges. And I mean, there must have been a couple of successes. I don't think I remember you having too many slides where it's like, oh man, look at all this money we got, or oh, wow,
Yeah.
this is so easy.
I wish.
Yeah, exactly. So, dealing with it. But the success is when, I mean, nobody knows this, but when you're dealing with something, especially tech, the success is when something that took you like a half an hour, you figure out to like, oh, dang it. Like, I've been doing this for half an hour and I could have done this. Or like if you had a bot or something to do and you never have to do it again. Nobody cares. Nobody, like, he can tell me and I can tell him about things sometimes, but nobody cares about these little maintenance things. It's like if you're mopping the floor somewhere and you figure out how to mop way faster, like nobody cares. Like maybe the next guy who has to mop cares, but nobody else cares. But it made your life a lot easier. And those are the successes, especially because we're talking overnight. All the people that get underappreciated for doing what you're doing right now, right? We all know what that's like when, you do some kind of a job for somebody else and your goal isn't to get recognition. Your goal is to make their life easier, and their life is easier, and then just move on with a happier life, right? Well, you've accomplished a goal, but you know what I'm saying? Like there's not much accolades for it.
No, there's rarely, like a sound of achievement or, words of encouragement for accomplishing a goal. It's just like, you've accomplished it. Now what now?
Usually it just means like, oh, now I have more time to try to figure out how to do these other four that seem impossible.
Exactly.
So has anything changed then? Has your reasons for doing it, your whys changed?
My reasons for doing it haven't changed because, if you see my YouTube channel, I'm Mr. Shall Not Be Infringed. And I really, truly believe, we shouldn't be infringed, whether it's whether it's our gun rights or our, our rights to post videos online, or our rights to speak out against the government, or against, speak our mind, period. So, that hasn't changed whatsoever. It's just, the only thing that's changed is how I've managed and how I work with GunTube, and work with the software, the tools, the hardware, the ins and outs of running a business.
I'm
That's the
linking to
only.
your I'm linking to your Night Strike channel. Is there a GunTube channel on
Yeah,
YouTube?
yeah, I've got one here. Let me. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
See,
you don't got it in your subscription or your
no,
feature.
I know. I've been. I don't mess with the YouTube one that much because
Yeah, I kind of assume it's sort of you got to, but you don't care kind of thing. But
yeah.
but let me ask this: since we're talking GunTube, but you do have Night Strike over there. For anybody that doesn't know, where did Night Strike 1 come from? Why that YouTube name?
It was one of the gaming names I used many years ago when internet gaming started becoming a thing. I used Night Strike and I used another one, and that's where Night Strike came from. And it's just like, so let me find out what what letters and numbers work together, and that I can get away with pretty much. I posted out there in the chat. I don't know if it showed up. Probably didn't.
Oh, I'll have to jump over. I'm on one
Yeah.
screen, I think. So then, are you going to sue Clover for doing GunTuber Academy because he's basically ripping you off?
Yeah. I'll sue him for one whole pot of gold or a bowl of Lucky Charms. No,
So then,
seriously, I'm not gonna mess with Chris whatsoever. It's just, he's got his thing, and I believe it or not, I don't own the copyright on GunTuber. I'm not like Google to be that that petty.
okay, so wait, did you put the link in the external or the internal?
Yeah, I tried to put it in the external, but it wouldn't work. Let me put it in the internal.
Yeah, there's put in the internal. It's probably because you're not a thing over there. Okay,
Yeah.
so just FYI, Flath is out there. Good evening. It's good to see
Hey,
you.
Flath.
Okay, cool. So I'll drop this link out there, and then am I still did I mute myself? No. I was going to say? So you've got the Night Strike channel. I was asking about the name. Does the Y mean something, or that's part of that was all the eyes were gone or whatever?
All the eyes were taken, so the Y.
Okay, I thought maybe because I remember you mentioning it. I don't know, probably 15 times over the years. It's just that I thought for some reason the Y came from a video game name or something.
No, the Y was literally because everybody and their brother had the eye already taken. So I figured.
Well, because you also had this guy's thing, and I didn't know until one of those conversations I'm pointing at that guy's head or whatever.
Yeah,
that
that's not Duke Nukem. That's from Bionic Commando.
Well, I don't know what it is, but I thought it was just I figured it was something, right? I figured
it's from a video game, yeah.
But then at some point you guys were talking, and then you were like, "Oh, it's a video game." So then, at what point was it? Do you remember anymore? When was it that you flipped from that to like whatever your new branding is? Because at some point you got big enough, right, that you needed to.
You mean the avatar?
Yeah, I remember at some point everybody was giving you shit, just like they were giving G23 crap in the other chat about his name. They were giving you crap about using a copyrighted avatar, and at some point
they weren't giving me crap. It's just the factor that if I looked at it objectively, and if I wanted to monetize myself or try and go that avenue, I couldn't use copyrighted logos or copyrighted avatars. I had to come up with my own in order to continue on.
Right, and I'm saying when was that? Because I can remember it happening. I just don't remember what year that was.
I don't remember what year it was either. It was like when I had when I would got about 900 or 1,000 subscribers at that point.
Well, I don't know how fast you've been going. So what? You're about 1,000 subscribers on that channel?
Yeah, about 1,000.
You're not growing fast then because you've been around forever.
No, I'm not. And the problem is that's the thing on YouTube. If you can grow fast or you can grow slow, it's hard to grow fast. It really is. I've been trying.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously people know the recipe, or some people fit, right? You got big boobs, you can grow fast, right? You got like some kind of $1 million car or something, you can go fast. But whatever. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some things. I was going to ask you though before about the other stuff you're doing. So I was asking about the Night Strike channel or whatever, but then you've got other projects. Now the Hit or Miss is one, and then I'm going to go ahead and consider we kind of think of roll calls chat on Wednesday.
Rants and raves.
Rants and raves, right? I'm going to consider that one because you're fairly regular on there.
Yeah.
Or at least you had been for a long time.
I have, yes.
How do those fit into the overall, I don't know, just your experience, your projects, your...
You know, well, you and I originally met, you know, for the first time in person in 2018 at the Wanamaker Gun Show. You remember that? I met Roll Call there too, and
Right.
Had lots of long conversations with Roll Call during that whole trip, and we just had kept in touch since then, and he said,
Is that your
"Hey,"
roommate on the trip?
no, he wasn't my roommate. I had my own room. I
Oh,
didn't have
okay.
a roommate, but but me and him had talked on length, and he called me up one day. He's like, Mike, I want to do a show. I don't know what kind of show I want to do, but I want to do something. And I go, okay. Well, I said, you come up with something. We'll call it whatever you want. You just come up with something, and I'll be there for you when I can. And that's pretty much how it's been. Now, he has moved a couple times since, and he is thinking of possibly ending it on episode 200, but he's also thought about after he's done with this current run of Rants and Raves, he may reinvent how he does things, and that's fine. That you don't have to do the same thing over and over and over
So
unless you
that's
want to.
interesting. Yeah, letting that project or that what I don't want to call it a season if it's going to be something different, but yeah, that letting that series run out and then just start another series, right?
Right. So
All right. So then what's the deal with Hit or Miss? Because I can't remember that one anymore. I mean, I vaguely remember that was back in, I don't even know. Maybe you can help me figure out. One of these days, I'm going to go figure out because I reorganized Every Second Matters and I figured out I can reorganize gun channels the same way, the gun channel's YouTube channel at least. I can vaguely remember when you guys started Hit or Miss, but I don't remember the origin story. So what's the origin story of Hit or Miss?
the Hit or Miss, the origin story was this. you know uh you, for those that remember gun channels, there was gun channels who used to have lobbies where people, like StreamYard or like Google Hangouts or like GunTube Chamber, where people would jump in and just hang out and have tons of conversations. And me and Smeggy 42, you know Smeggy quite well. We were having tons and tons of conversations, jumping ideas off each other, and it's just like the one thing we started. You'll remember this. We say is either you asked for a month or something to create a gun month out of, and me and Smeggy came up with April. You remember that? And then we said, I've been like, I said, Smeggy, you know what? We should create our own show. And he's like, yeah, we should.
Oh, hold on. I walked away to get something to drink, and as you were saying that, my shit was clinking around and clanking. So I heard you say something, but I didn't hear the words.
Well, you said it was either you wanted another month other than Glocktober. You wanted a new month, and you remember what was on Gun Channels, and you said we need another month other than Glocktober. And me and Smeggy, we had hundreds of chats over this, and we're like, how about April? And you're like,
I don't think I remember sitting there saying that, but I'm sure that there was chats where it was like we had Glocktober that started in 2014.
mm-hmm.
And I've mentioned this in other chats, but for people that don't know, in 2014 we had gun channels, and originally gun channels, we didn't know what we were going to do with it. I really wanted gun channels to be for content creators to come together and be able to pool resources and figure out, collaborate and work together and that kind of thing. So with that kind of goal in mind, trying to remember even what happened, but basically the result was that we came up with Glocktober. Oh, it was a couple of three people, actually. It was Zoran and somebody and me. I'm trying to remember who the other persons were. But anyway, we came up with this idea of Glocktober.
Mm-hmm.
because it sounded cool or something, and some stores had done sales and called it Glocktober, right? It just kind of rolled off the thumb. So I went to Glock and I said, can we use Glocktober? And they're like, not only can you use Glocktober, but here is a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff. And it was something like basically 100 prize packs with like a sticker and a patch and hats and like range bags and shirts and all kinds of shit. They sent me this giant box of stuff. So I knew I was going to get a bunch of stuff, but it would have been a bunch of Glock stuff. So I started, back in the day, I was a little bit more entrepreneurial like that. I called in some favors, just asked people who might want to participate. And we got these 100 prize packs with all kinds of stuff from the Wilderness Tactical, from Glock, from, well, I guess I can't remember anymore, but there was a whole bunch of stuff. And we built a website called Glocktober, and I did that live so that people could see how to build a website. And Glock said we could use the name, so it was Glocktober. We created a patch with a committee, and a whole bunch of people got together in a live chat, and we created that 2014 patch. That's why it looks so horrible. And then, so anyway, we started this Glocktober thing, and it was like a collaborative community effort, and everybody was cool. And I mean, Glocktober, some people hate it, some people love it, but it was this thing, right? So it was like, let's do more of this. Like, what else can we do? Why do we have to stop at Glocktober? So I don't think it was like, let's make, we have to have another one, but it was like, hey, this is
but we came up with a April, and you did a whole bunch of patches with your patch machine for that. We've had other patches for a
for many years, pretty much every
for many
year.
years. But we started. I think it was like 2015 that me and Smeggy came up with that, because it was just like right after you're like, okay, we have Glocktober. You said, yeah, I think you put a poll on the forums where what other months can we use, or can
that
we think of for a new gun month other than Glocktober. And I think that's what it ended up being. And me and Smeggy and a whole bunch of other guys, we racked our minds on what we can make, and we came up with April, something in the spring.
Well, that's what I liked about gun channels. That brings up a facet of gun channels, because I'm always ragging on Discord. And the reason I hate Discord is it's all like hidden. It's all behind bars. Like, unless you're there,
you have to join the Discord in order to hang out.
Right. So, and then none of it's public. So on gun channels, you might have had to get a link or something depending on the chat to be in the chat, but everybody could see everything. And then when it was finished, it was just archived. It was archived in an organized way, timeline or by group, whatever. Like that was all about gun channel. So you could build a channel and put your stuff in that channel, and it was just there. So what would happen is like this, like, we'd have some kind of a theme or something that we were all kind of interested in. Nobody was really into sports shooting or hunting to the extent that that's all we ever talked about, but we also would talk about it when somebody was interested, right?
And so we had many reloading chats.
So we would have these kind of running themes, and the monthly thing of the month was one of those, I think. So that sounds like probably the impetus was something like that. So
I think
where did the hit or miss come from then?
Hit or miss came right after we came up with April. Like, Smeggy, we need to do our own show. What are we call
okay, so just from the farting around looking for that name, having live chats, you just decided to keep going with it.
We went on, because remember, after we came up with April, we tried to run it by you, and you were kind of hit or miss on this idea, and that might be where that came from, where we said, okay, we got April, what do you think about Makarov? Like Makarov. And you weren't too keen on that, and I'm like, well, that's hit or miss. And Specky's like, you know what, that we could call our chat that, and kind of stuck right there.
Oh, so I thought it was because of you didn't always do it, and you called it that because you didn't think you'd be doing it all the time, or is that just what you said because you only did everything?
We called it that for a number of reasons, like whether it would be a success or it wouldn't be a success. Or the factor that, hey, either we'll be there or we won't be there. It was a number of reasons, but with that kind of name, it kind of fit.
This is Makarov, by the way. I don't know if DJ is saying that because he knows it's Makarov, or if he's coming up with that. But
we are in Makarov, yes.
I think everybody came up with I don't think anybody disputed Makarov, because there's nothing else good for me.
Remember, we also came up with September too.
There's a couple that people contested, though. That's what I'm saying. But I don't think
there's a couple.
this one was. And then there's a couple. I don't think anybody came up with like a July, because July is a stupid word. It's too short.
Right. But we came up with, like, we had September, we had April. Somebody wanted to be April, and that didn't sound nice.
Well, that's the thing. It's hard to explain, but I don't have it. It doesn't exist anymore. But Gun Channels was a thing that you could. It was like a software setup that allowed you to do different, like a lot of different things. So when for something
like a Facebook, honestly.
Well, it was more than that, because it was just like a modular thing. So I had the ability to do a lot of stuff when we were paying for it. So that means I had a nice inventory of stuff to do. So when we wanted to do something like come up with a name like that, we had different types of polls, but you could put a poll in a channel. So it was like a poll that you could go find instead of a poll that got lost in the stream. I guess that's the way to put it. So then that way, if Night Strike was having a chat, they could talk about it. And if somebody else was having a chat, if they felt like it, they could also reference it. And that allowed us to have some running things between the communities on Gun Channels. There was no obligation, but since there was stuff to pick from, and there was, no people knew how to add their own stuff. So it wasn't limited to like, here's the 4 things you can choose from. But like every time somebody wants to add something, it's there for everybody. I guess they could put it private, but most people didn't. So, let's say you guys are talking about, hey, let's have a themed month for every month of the year and see what happens. Well, somebody who's having, like you're having a daytime chat about reloading. Well, somebody's having a nighttime chat about long range shooting, but they see that you put that up and now they're talking about it, and then they contribute. And in the morning, the chat is like, oh, people said stuff last night. So there was that kind of aspect to Gun Channels where I guess you could probably have that on Facebook, similar, and maybe to some extent on the other platforms, but just they're not built that way. So there's not like community bulletin boards and too many platforms out there.
No, there's not, unfortunately.
And it's not like they're brilliant. It's just that happened to be an aspect that allowed that kind of thing that we were just talking about to take place in the first place. So. Well, we're about an hour, and I realize it's in the middle of the night, so I don't want to keep you forever. But at the same time, if you're got stuff to chat about or whatever, we don't have to like cut it right off either. So
I mean, if anybody's got any questions, go ahead and just throw them out there. We'll try and answer them.
And we got Flath out there, who's old school. Oh, I guess I was going to ask you if you got a second. Then, if you're not rushing off, then
I'm not in any hurry. It's fine.
When did you join Gun Channels?
I joined Gun Channels like late 14, early 15. Right after you and Yankee, started. What is it? The Shooting Left to Center with Matt.
Holy crap! That was that long ago.
It was that long ago. Yeah. It was like after the I joined after like the 3rd episode.
When did Yankee get big?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember. Yankee was tiny, and then he pissed somebody off or did something. He got really big, and then I don't really keep track anymore. But I think he's gone. Like, I think he went from. I mean, he was little. He was like 20,000 subs or something. He wasn't very big. And then something happened. He did some shit or whatever, and I wasn't paying attention. And all of a sudden, he's big, and then he's bigger than me. And then he was at like 200,000, and all that happened like in a year, maybe, or 2 years. Yeah. And then he went from 250,000. I don't know where he's at now, but everything he's done now has been taking another 6 years. So he sort of had like a spurt there, and I don't know where the hell his spurt came from. He didn't do it; it just happened. But
the reason why I joined Gun Channels because I was just looking for like some like-minded individuals I could talk to, hang out with, speak my mind with, and you mentioned on like the 3rd episode, you mentioned Gun Channels, and you linked to it, and I'm figuring like, okay, I joined Gun Channels.
Okay, so when we built the thing, that was more of a reaction to YouTube trying to make that Google Plus or whatever it was called, right? And that was annoying because I hate Facebook. I still hated it back then, and
I still hate it now.
Like,
I hate Twitter too.
I had built too many things online, and I was rusty. It wasn't like I was fluent in internet or nothing, but I knew enough to know that I can build whatever I need to build, and I can learn how to build whatever needs to be built. So I started hanging out with this other guy, Ralph, and he was similar to Mike, that he was on the IT side of stuff. So I know enough about IT to be dangerous, but at least I know what's doable and what's not, and like what's realistic and what's not.
I don't even think I met Ralph.
I don't think anybody has, because he never really showed up at anything in real life. But he had the tech and he had the interest to say, hey, instead of just getting pissed, because that's what was happening, is YouTube had created a community from about 2010 up until about 2013. And then around 14 or whatever, it decided to make this Google Plus. And I think it was also, again, something about server usage and just their goals weren't to have a social media platform. Their goal was to just be video hosting, so that people would sit down like a movie theater and leave, not like sit down like a movie theater, but then also hang around like a bar. Like they weren't used to that. So now they are. Now they dig that. But for a while there, they wanted you to just like talk to each other about the movie you watched and then leave. But they didn't want you hanging around. They expected you to go to Facebook or someplace else. And once they kind of leaned into it anyway, so whenever they were trying to push everybody into Google Plus, we were like, screw this. And instead of just saying, let's leave, we said, why don't we build something that's different or better even, that can be for us and not for everybody. So we're not trying to replace YouTube, but just a place where we can hang out. And that's where we never agreed beyond that. So he wanted to make a place that's more like Full 30, where like, let's cater to the content creator who's making $1 million. Because at the time in 2014, the content creators were starting to make money. So they're making $10,000 a month. So they're making serious scratch, and they're not just jumping off the platform when you're making $10,000 a month. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be some real scratch for you to want to put any amount of time anywhere else. So his goal was to cater to these people that are making bucho dollars and then make a cut of that somehow. And I'm like, nah, I'm not looking for like entrepreneurial ways to make money off of a potential situation. I'm looking to just facilitate the conversation and the creation of content, right? Take that to the next level. Because I've always been a website guy. I mean, there's a reason it's called gun websites and gear websites. I think websites are the individual freedom of the internet. That's your car, right? That's not a bus. YouTube's a big ass bus. YouTube's a weird train. Like you're just getting on their train and driving around. Somebody might write graffiti on the train and you might get on that car because you think it's cool, but you're on a train. A website is having your own car or a motorcycle or a horse, right? Like you're doing what you want on the internet with a website. So my whole thing was, for gun channels at least, was let's make a place where people who got that, I'm going to call it entrepreneurial, technological with, right? Like technological with entrepreneurial, like get people a place to hang out who are into that. So if we get a bunch of graphic people and a bunch of audio people and a bunch of video people and a bunch of business people all together, maybe we can make a whole bunch of successful people, right? That share each other's skill sets. That would be awesome. So that was where I was coming from. Let's make some kind of capitalist hippie gun community. And dude wanted to make more of like, let's cater to the, I don't want to use names, but let's cater to the people that are making $10,000 a month and maybe make $1,000 a month for them to make $12,000 a month. And I was like, I suck at money. I lose money.
He really wanted, he was all in on the capitalism part, but he just wasn't all in on every other part, right?
Well, he wanted to make a business, and he's just like, I'm not the guy to make a business with. I'm not good at making businesses, but I also don't like any of those people. Like, I hate those people, to be honest. I think that they're wasting their time and they're wasting everybody's attention. You know, we've got opportunity while we're alive to do a certain amount of stuff, and I don't see getting a whole bunch of people hot and bothered about how you can shoot through a frying pan is effective use of anybody's time. And if the person on the other end is going to spend X amount of time watching something online about guns, I'd rather it be anything better than waste of time, right? So I don't want to cater to those people. I don't want to facilitate that. And you know what I mean? If GunTube was all about how to get the certain networks to get off of YouTube so that they could harness the power of their own network better, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You know what I'm saying? So that was the kind of conversations we had were different, rudimentary. Like he wanted to just facilitate stuff that I was trying to flee from. Like I didn't want to, I could care less if that part of YouTube floundered. The part of YouTube that I valued was the conversation that was happening in the chats and the inspiration that was happening that let a regular person, we couldn't use phones at the time. We still had to go buy a camcorder or whatever, but you could go buy. I used a $50 camcorder for most of my experience, most of the time I spent on YouTube, um, sharing, creating, being part of stuff, and just building stuff that other people could come around and contribute to. So that's the part of the whole thing that I was trying to build with gun channels. Now let's talk about this. We talked a little bit about gun channels because I was going to ask you, like, where you jumped in, which is basically the beginning. So sometime we'll have a different chat about gun channels, and I'll probably have other people in that are different experiences, but we'll have a chat, and I want to kind of go through the eras of gun channels because you were there for, it sounds like, most of them. Nothing really happened before you got there, except that everybody joined and looked around.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you remember Ralph, then you remember the beginning. Like, Ralph was there for maybe a year or something.
I guess I got there the next year after he left.
But whatever. I mean, if you even hear, but nobody nowadays even knows who that is. So that's all I'm saying. So we can have that conversation somewhere else. But as far, or some other times, but as far as, so we don't take this into a 2-hour interview for everybody. But again, Mike said he didn't care. So let us know. Now we're talking to 6 people that are watching this live. Are you federal agents who are getting paid overtime? If so, use your secret identities out here, and otherwise you're not going to get overtime. But if you are a human and you're doing something and you want to listen to us, then say, hey, oh, Hatfield's out there.
Yep.
So definitely got old school in here right now.
Yep.
I was going to say, as far as that aspect, all that crap I was just talking about and like thinking about the old gun channel shit, the way it was built or whatever, how is, or what aspects of that, if any, are you applying to GunTube, or do you have, I mean, I've used a little bit of it, but there's not a ton of people to, we don't have that element going on over there, so I haven't explored it. But I mean, we've had that kind of discussion before, but just in passing, I think, really not like sitting down and talking about it.
Yeah, well, GunTube, it has like, if you live stream on GunTube, it has, you can talk to people, in the channel and whatnot. It does have a live chat. There's also, I don't know if you noticed this, but if you logged into GunTube, there's also a messaging system where you could, private message other users too. So.
Okay, well, that's nothing to be slight. That's nothing to be overlooked. So a couple of things you mentioned there. I just logged in as we're chatting here. So that's what it looks like. Looks way cleaner than stupid YouTube. So you log in and you've got
YouTube used to have this, and then they got rid of it for some reason.
You see what's going on, and then you can go look at a specific thing, like all the people I'm subscribed to, or go look at my own stuff and monitor or whatever. But like you said, you've got the live stream, so you can go, well, I guess I'll just go to my library and look. Like, I've got a bunch of streams on here, times that I've gone live. You can, well, there's lots of options. I guess we'll get into technical stuff some other point here, but you can go live, and that is, I mean, that's everything we talked about with gun channels, was the idea, all that came from the live conversations, and the live conversations is a big chunk of what you got here. And then the messaging thing, I guess we have that on Instagram, and we don't have it on YouTube.
YouTube used to allow you to message other
there's no messages. All there is a comment. So yeah, you have to do everything in the public. Now that can be good and bad. I guess that can be annoying, if it's a big enough thing. But in a regular size thing, this is super useful, because now you can have an alert or some sort of a conversation with people. I haven't used it, like I say, so there's nothing in here for me. I'm assuming, though, that the messages don't disappear. It's kind of like the Instagram ones where, let's say that we chat about, I don't know, like what size dog collar or something, and then 6 months later, I'm like, oh, what size dog collar? I can go back in here and just go scroll back and find.
I don't use it much myself, but I believe there's you can leave them there, or you can delete them.
Yeah, so that's just handy, and it's, again, something that most places turn off because it can be abused, it can cause problems. So it's another thing he knows he's going to have to monitor. But since people, aren't abusing it, why not leave it on? It's a useful thing, and it does give that, I don't know what to call it, like incremental shift over towards social platform versus, what do you call, like, just something that posts videos is, I mean, just a tool on the internet, really. Just
again, with GunTube, unlike YouTube, where you have to hit a certain amount of buttons, or the certain set of requirements to have your YouTube channel have the community tab, we just let people have a community tab on their channel right off the bat, because you want to say something to your subscribers, your followers, or whatnot, just go and say it. You know, why should we have walls put up to where you can't say anything to them unless
Well,
through your
on
video?
YouTube, I mean, it's not like YouTube cares. They're not
It's
trying to hinder
discussion
free
tab.
speech. They do that because they don't want people to create an account and then immediately start spamming spam, basically.
Right.
So they make it so that there's some threshold of interaction so that you're actually a human or at least a machine that's gone through a lot of effort. But usually they can tell it's a machine before it gets to that point.
The
So-
discussion tab is your community.
Either way, it doesn't matter. That could be the most valid excuse in the world. The thing is, on YouTube, if you want to have a discussion tab or a community tab, you do have to have a certain size, and that's
have a threshold, yeah.
to start and use it. Where on GunTube you can. So what we're talking about is on your channel. Like I logged in, went to my channel, and then I click on that discussion tab there. But here I can bitch now because I just remembered this now that we're in here. It only lets me put 5. Watch what happens if I try to put another one in here. Here is another one. And then I put comment. It'll go, your comment posting limit has been reached. So
I'll have to look at that.
yeah. So anyway, but yeah, you normally, if I wasn't glitching or whatever, and that's any number, a million little things.
That might just be a setting I have to mess with. So
I usually end up figuring it's like, my account has probably been there since the beginning, and he's probably upgraded this thing or updated it like 16 times since then. So all the original accounts are going to have like, you know, this database structure edited 4 times in the update. So there's things that people don't pay attention to, that especially on systems that aren't sitting there with like a staff of 40 working on shit constantly. A little weird shit will happen. But like you said, usually it's toggling the thing on and off or something, which updates 6 different things that normally don't get updated.
Every time I update the platform, the settings get reset, so I have to try and set everything back. And
this again could be a way to throttle on a system like this so that somebody doesn't abuse it, since it is turned on right away, so that they can only get 5 without having some kind of a, you know, check or whatever. But anyway, so that's again a feature that lets you do more than just post videos. It lets you, I don't know, get feedback with the people that be watching your videos. It lets you, for like what I'm doing here, is post that Yankee was doing a thing about the state of Oregon, trying to raise some awareness, right? Get it out on multiple platforms. That Yankee was doing his Patreon thing. I guess that was a couple months back. We did, I posted a thing about eBay. So, you know, trying to get extra links out there to the eBay auctions, let people know who don't like YouTube, that do watch our stuff on other platforms, you know about the things that we're doing. Where if you just put that stuff on YouTube, you know, like for everybody who puts stuff on Facebook, I never see it. If somebody puts stuff on Twitter, I'm never going to see it, right? Like if somebody puts it on YouTube, I'll probably see it because I'm looking at YouTube. And it's one of those things, like get it out there in front of people who might not be using YouTube.
right.
Outlaw saying his GunTube account was created the day it went live.
Yep.
Now I deleted the list, but I mean, at least I let the list go whenever gun channels went down. But we did for a while. I could go in and look, and then people started to keep track somewhere, I think, because it came up every once in a while. But you know what number account everybody was? I don't think it tells me in here, does it, when I log in? Or
It does not anymore. It's changed several times already.
I don't think I was first or nothing though, but I'm sure
No, I was first.
week into it or something.
Yeah.
I had set it up, gun channel. Everybody knew gun channels was coming because I was fiddling with it at first. So whenever it actually went live and like, okay, now it's live kind of thing, wasn't the first time everybody logged in. So for us, it was, you know, maybe 2 fits and starts before. So maybe 12 people logged in. I had to delete everything. 20 people logged in. I had to delete everything. And then it started kind of thing.
Right.
But anyway, so when it happened for us, everybody knew it was coming and sitting there waiting. So the first probably 20 were boom, like right then. I said, hey, it's working, like in some chat. And then boom, just however long it took people to fill out their name. If I remember right, it was pretty quick like that. But still, people were curious, you know, and then it was after a year or two, especially after 3 or 4 years when the spectrum or the spread was huge, everybody was curious to see what their member number was so that they could have that seniority or whatever you want to call it, time on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Again, once you, depending on how people use it, or if they ask you that, it's usually just a matter of figuring out, looking at it, thinking about it, looking at it sideways, and then figuring out how, coming up with a way to make it do whatever people are asking, because it's there somehow. It's either displayed and you just have to turn it on, or sometimes it's like, well, it's not displayed, but it seems like your number is 4 minus this, and if you just applied this formula every time somebody asks, you're probably going to get their number. Or if you take this and remove it, that leaves their number behind. There's sometimes ways you can play with the codes and make things happen. I'm rambling. It's getting late.
Yeah.
So I asked for questions. People are just saying, hey, nobody's asking anything specific. So again, Mike, I appreciate you coming on to kind of just ramble with us in the middle of the night, but to talk about hopefully GunTube in a way that nobody's chatted with you in a while. It's probably been a little while since you've had interviews about the tube, but maybe I'm assuming how many interviews have you, how often do you get interviews about the tube?
Not very often, actually. I've only had like 1 or 2.
Oh, you have had more than that. I mean, Crump has you on. You've never been on Locked and Loaded Latinos?
No, I haven't.
But I know Crump's had you on in Clover.
Yeah, I've talked with
You're probably just not counting all the people you know or whatever.
No, I'm probably not. So it's like, so off the top of my head, probably 5 or 6 times. If we're including, the people I know.
Right on. So I'm assuming we've touched some stuff then that you haven't. But you don't necessarily go around sending out like what's it called, like a media kit where you're like, hey, GunTube XYZ, and like give us a call anytime you want to talk about this, or like, hey, we're talking about this because it's bothering us. Let us on your show. Yeah,
no, I don't do that.
I do a post on YouTube, like scheduled, where I think it's like every 3 months or something. I post like, hey, if you want me to be on your show, I'll talk about this, this, and this. Because I figured, I forget who it was. Somebody was asking me to be on their show, and I'm like, they were saying something like, oh, I didn't know I could ask you that. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm a regular person like everybody else. What would you think we can't ask you? So I'm like, well, I might as well put a thing out there that says, hey, what the hell? We're just all regular people. Ask me, and I'm not going to get on and talk about freaking sports or something, right? But I'll get on and talk about something I know about.
Yeah, it was a long time, before, we were able to converse like this. So
right on. Well, again, I'm thinking with this Monday show, I'm going to try to get folks on who are doing extraordinary things like yourself in the 2A realm, doing things that are outside the stupid recipe. Well, you're creating the recipes. You're in the cutting new ground that the people that run the belt, like the people that are doing that bell curve little example, you're setting the ground for you're scouting for those folks that are on the front end of that bell curve. And then people come along after they watch the successes of the people that figured out what you were doing. So I give you credit for doing something, cutting new ground, period. And then we overlooked it before when you said it, but get out and do it. I can kind of remember when you were saying something about the origins of it, and I kind of remember the conversations where you were kind of like,
you and I had it.
There's already a full 30. There's already this other thing, or something's coming, or it's a pain in the ass, and it's like, yeah, or you could do it and find out or not. And there's nobody gives credit to that. People just think, oh yeah, well, what the hell is easy for him? Or oh yeah, look, it worked. Obviously it worked, so it was easy to make that decision. Ain't nothing easy about making that decision, and nothing necessary about making that decision. Who cares if it's easy or not? Like, it's easy to not do shit, right? It's easy to stay in bed all day. It doesn't mean it's the right decision.
No.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't do it. So I think there's a lot to be said for the fact that you gave it an effort when you didn't need to. And about 5 seconds later, Gunstreamer comes along, and everybody was like, oh yeah, Gunstreamer's the shit. And then YouTube's over there being weird. So again, you could have been like, well, whatever. Stuck with it, and then, like I say, everything else crashed, came back up, limped back up, and you're still doing your thing. So it's pretty neat. So anyway, we'll have you back on to chat about gun channels and stuff, but I appreciate you taking some time to give us some insight on that. And I'm just kind of talking and reading at the same time. It obviously didn't work. Yes, definitely on the lobbies and stuff, especially nighttime lobbies. You know,
yeah, we used to talk about everything and anything.
Pink would set up a room, go to work overnight, jump in sometimes, you know, during breaks or lunch or something, monitor what was happening, and then people would just respect his open room, and we would bounce the invite because people would fall asleep, and every once in a while, until we figured out the way to do it, people would fall asleep and the room would be open, but nobody would have the link because everybody would fall asleep and nobody would drop the link or whatever. So we figured out how to make that happen, and then yeah, we had a lot of evolution in the conversation. Unfortunately, what we didn't have in those days is an awareness of what was happening around us. Yeah. We knew what we were focused on, but at the time, the DC project was starting. Tony Simon's 2A for E was starting. Like tons of projects were starting, and if we would have had a little more ambition, not we, but if I guess I would have had more ambition to push that around, or if it would have been a little bit bigger deal, we might have had included some of those folks back then. But I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just basically saying that was about the same time frame. But they would have also needed to have been able to do everything they were doing, creating organizations, and have time to jump into all those things. So best we could have done is be aware of them. But what we ended up doing is evolving not just the conversation, but our, what's the word, like experience, you and me. Like I learned a hell of a lot about running software and online ventures and groups of people. You had to be experiencing some of that, and then I can't even imagine. So I didn't want to get into too much of the tech side of it because it's not anybody's business really. But right. I can't even imagine the ups and downs. My load wasn't that big. I mean, we get 1 million people a month or whatever. Seems like a lot. It was kind of a lot for the time, but it was all a bunch of pictures and talking. Like we weren't really pushing too much, so it didn't cost me a lot to do that. And I wasn't monetizing it, so there was like no stress, right? It's just a matter of making the bills, and they pretty much always got paid. So it wasn't like there was too much stress. It was more of the dealing with all the stuff, the ends, making all the ends.
It was really just managing the software at that point.
Yeah, the millions of little ends that you had to monitor, and then there's not robots to do it all. But anyway, so I can't even imagine what all you've got on your side. Yeah. But without getting into too much of that, again, thanks for being on. And let's see. Oh, do you have a plug or a commercial or anything over on your channel?
Just from my personal YouTube channel. For GunTube, I don't think I have got a plug or any sort of video or anything yet, though.
Well, then I'll put the challenge out there. Anybody that wants to make some GunTube commercials, if you can make a GunTube commercial under 20 seconds, ideally, but even somewhere between 10, right? 10, no less than 10, because you want to get some information across and not make it like just a nothing, but 10 to 20 seconds in length. And the best one will get something for sure. I've got something in mind, but we've definitely got something we can make happen as a reward or a thing. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say because we can't give stuff away. This is earning it though, so it's not giving it away. So anyway, if the people are listening, want to put something together of any kind, ideally something with video though, that we can at least get to video. Yeah. And something that promotes GunTube that one, Mike will approve. So if it's weird as shit, we're not going to use it. But if it's off topic or just something weird, like, I don't know, like he's got a AR-15 and an AK on there. If you did it with like a laser gun and a squirt gun, he might be like, I get it, but I'm not really going for that look. So no, or maybe change it or something. So, keeping in mind that we're just coming up with this. But anyway, yeah, if anybody wants to put in for that, then whenever we get a couple of those and we chat with Mike again, we'll do some sort of a poll or something and see who wins what. But anyway, I think that'd be a neat thing just to have some sort of like the old MTV cuts or whatever those are called, like the little MTV little graphics that would happen, little animations that would happen.
Right.
It'd be cool for like Gizzard and other folks who do live stuff to have a little button we can push. That's what I was thinking. That's why I asked. And then maybe you could just shove them on the site, you know, put them up as a playlist or something, and then people
definitely
use them. All right. Well, in lieu of that, we'll just end it and say thanks to everybody who's up at night. One, because you're probably resetting the world or cleaning it or raking it, right? And the rest of the people out there don't give you no appreciation. I always like to say thanks. And thanks for listening to this show while you're doing it. And if you're listening to this and you're one of the Patreons, then thank you even more so. I'll throw the link out there in case anybody wants to jump in. I was drinking coffee earlier. I'm not super awake, but I'm also not yawning. And there are people out there. So if anybody wants to jump in, we don't do this every night, but when there's a lot of people, we'll do it. So there's a link. You can jump in and join the after chat. And yeah, until next time, thanks for watching.
A New Media. We'll talk behind the scenes of 2A Media, so grab a camera, microphone, your keyboard, or a phone, and join in the creation of 2A Media Online. We'll be talking nuts and bolts, give some tips and tricks, as well as discussing software, online platforms, how to network, finance, and have fun with your 2A projects.
Check out our Gear website store at gearwebsites.com for all kinds of cool 2A stuff. Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals at gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching gunwebsites.com. Do 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 do.
All right, we're off. Oh,
No, I'm still live.
we're still live. All right.
I always do this giveaway and nobody ever does it. So I'm going to go over here and choose this one. Wait, which one is it? It'll say live. There it is. And then hashtag GunTube. Nobody. So draw, nobody. It was a giant prize. It was $1 million, but whatever. Nobody wanted it, I guess, tonight.
Nope.
You have to give that $1 million to somebody else.